So, ILLIT, SSERAFIM, and KATSEYE made a song together. That's real interesting. Iconic by mistake. Let's check this out. Fair disclosure, I already watched that this morning, but I'm going to watch it again for the channel because there are things I want to talk about. Let's go. Okay, so one thing I appreciate about this, I'm not going to get into every single specific lyric, but I'm going to talk about like the general idea. I do like the idea that, especially during the SSERAFIM part, like the big emphasis that I didn't let the negativity change me. I haven't let the fame or the attention change who I am to the core or change who I am as a person. And in fact, I kind of use your hatred as inspiration, as motivation, as fuel to continue and keep doing what I'm doing. And I think I really appreciate the whole concept of the song. I'll get further into that the more we go in, but let's see what SSERAFIM has to say. Not SSERAFIM, ILLIT. Let's see what ILLIT has to say. It's like all you do, breakfast to dinner. I go with the rolling, breaking your fingers. Thank you for the comments, it's because of all you hate. I am iconic, my mistake. I am iconic, my mistake. Okay, before they get into this, I also want to bring up some things. It's something I saw earlier. It was about, apparently, like, the different ideas for the different parts are, like, with a Chaewon on the grave, apparently people were sending her, like, headstones or grave requests or something when she, on her birthday, to Hybe. I don't know, that's weird. And then for this one, the whole dentistry thing is apparently, because I don't know a whole lot about ILLIT, but apparently people were criticizing them because of their veneers. So that's why they're in the dentist chair and doing all the dental work and stuff like that in this part. And I know for the KATSEYE thing, one thing especially, we'll get into that. So I'll save that for later. And I do think it's interesting how the video is based off of their the different things that people criticize them for, no matter how inane or asinine it may be. Duty, taking the beating. I keep on cheesing, looks so deceiving. Like you knew me, flapping your lips, forming. I just keep on going, too beautiful to be broken. Your imagination got me going by now. Simulation got me in a space. 24/7, more like 25/8. Honestly, are you okay? Hating me, it's like all you do. Breakfast to dinner. I'll go with the bulletproof breaking your fingers. Thank you for the comments, it's because of all you hate. I am iconic, my mistake. I do like when Megan says fuck you, but it says thank you in the subtitles. I love that part. I think that's hilarious because I think it plays into like sometimes like your true sentiment, but what you're forced to express outward and how you can be sometimes misinterpreted or misread, or even like you have to sometimes say things in a way that you don't entirely mean because of how it may be perceived. And I do love the part that's coming up with Danny and also KATSEYE's part in general, because part of what Danny's criticism is, and she's going to mention, is her over dancing or her crazy facial expressions, because especially during Gnarly, that was a thing. People criticized all her facial expressions, even though they were all doing crazy facial expressions during Gnarly. Anyway, let's proceed. I'm just trying to stay me. That's a little crazy. Now I am iconic from how much you fucking Okay, before we get into the bag part, another thing that I think was pointed out to me earlier, something I saw in a short, but I can't unsee it, and it makes a lot of sense, that the police represent those hyper-vigilant fans who are always policing everything that they do and are constantly clocking like every single minute thing and reading into every single thing and acting as if some of the things they do are borderline illegal because it doesn't fall into this neat little box of what you think they should be. And I think that's part of what this is about for each one of these groups. I'll get into that a little bit later at the end of the video, but I just thought that was something very interesting and valid to bring up, and it kind of ties the whole video together and makes it make a lot of sense.
So insane. It's like all you do, breakfast to dinner. Algorithm bulletproof for breaking your fingers. Thank you for the comments, it's because of all your hate. I am iconic, my mistake.
Okay. Iconic by mistake. Wait, hold on. Let's make a better background. Okay, yeah, that makes a better background. Anyway, so one thing I think is really interesting, especially with these three groups, because I did a little bit of reading before I did this video, and from what I understand, these are like the three girl groups in HYBE that get the most hate. And they all get hate what seems like for very similar, but also kind of distinct reasons. Now, ILLIT is the group I know the least about out of all three of these groups. And I have listened to some ILLIT songs. I haven't listened to as much ILLIT as I have SSERAFIM or KATSEYE. But I've listened to quite a little bit of it. And I'll say, like, especially for KATSEYE, one of the things they get for their hate outside of, like, over dancing or facial expressions are how memey their music seems sometimes, or how a lot of people criticize their lyrics. They also criticize the fact that they can't lock down what and who KATSEYE is, because with every song or every comeback, they're always like very different than they were before. And especially because after Sis and since Beautiful Chaos, they've gone way more into the experimental pop side of things than just being the nice clean-cut girl group that was kind of sold to you during Sis. And the kind of a similar thing happens with SSERAFIM, is that SSERAFIM also tends to change up a lot from one comeback to another, and you can't really lock down what SSERAFIM is and who they are. And also, from what I understand, especially during the Coachella performance around that time, they had some issues with performing, and people criticized some of their singing. And I would say, at least in my opinion, from what I've seen from them lately, that they had any of those hiccups they had, they've greatly improved on. But the problem is sometimes people can get so married to the idea of something that it's hard for them to change their idea of who you are once they've decided who you are. And the only real criticism I know of ILLIT is it's basically a bunch of New Jeans fans who say that ILLIT copied New Jeans, which I guess I can kind of understand, but not really. I mean, I've listened to a lot of New Jeans. Like, I've listened to way more New Jeans than I have ILLIT. And I would say, from at least the songs I've heard of ILLIT, I don't think they're necessarily copying just New Jeans flat out. Can there be similarities? Sure, but I don't think it's a one-to-one. I think it's a little unwarranted. Anyway, I've rambled long enough. Let me know what you think. Do you like Iconic? Who is your favorite group on Iconic? What do you think about the criticism these groups get? And not just the legitimate criticism, but the nitpicky, over-analyzing, parasocial kind of comments. Let me know what you think. And if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. Also, go to my Instagram, Cosmic Ramen, where I drop my comic shorts. And I will talk to you next time. Bye.